Hello and welcome to this Edexcel GCSE Geography Walking Talking Mock Global Development Part 2, designed to help you improve your confidence in reading and answering exam questions. If you're not used to this series, then please pause here so you can read the instructions on how to make the best use of this video. So now we're going to look at the 8-mark question. Assess the social and economic impacts of private investment by TNCs in a named developing/emerging country. Now, before we start this, let's just have a quick look at the mark scheme and remember that this will not be point marked, not like the shorter explain, describe or state questions. Here they look at the whole of the question and they have a look and have you demonstrated an understanding of the key terms in the question and link them to the command word. You can see here that you've got to show accurate understanding. So the information that you've given is correct and that it provides logical connections. So therefore you're answering the question. It's got to be well developed. So it needs to have reasons, good use of connectives. This means that, so, therefore, which is coherent. So it's easy to read and make sense. It's well balanced, so it's got a range of information, and it also leads to judgments. So you're looking at whether you're assessing, which is the most important, or evaluating how successful. And that where possible, it can be supported by evidence. Now, to get a grade 9, it's still possible just to get the top level 2s. So you don't have to worry too much about having all specific detail. As long as you've got a few bits of information, that will be fine. Looking at the question again then, assess the social and economic impacts of private investment by TNCs in a named developing emerging countries. Now, assess means to say how important. We've then got to look at the social, the impacts of on people, and the economic, the impacts on business and on jobs, of private investment by transnational corporations in a named country. Well, the country that we've studied would be India, so we'd need to put that here. So you've got to know what private investment is, and this would be where companies put money to set up businesses within these developing and emerging nations. As it's social and economic impacts, this gives us a nice bit of structure. And we could look at the positive social and the negative social and the positive economic and negative economic impacts and say which ones of those are the most important. Here is sort of a repeat of what assess means. So the importance of different factors. And it's important when you're doing these 8 marks to have a good structure if possible. And the question will often give you a possible structure for it. But remember, there's more than one correct answer. It's hard to teach one specific way or one specific approach because that approach doesn't always apply to the different questions. Sometimes they have more than one key term in it. Sometimes they'll look at comparing different countries or just saying how effective, important they are within one country. So just to have one simple structure that fits all doesn't work. But what is important is to have a basic introduction to go through the key terms in the question, then have very clear paragraphs on your different points, and then a conclusion at the end which summarizes the information you've given based on your question and actually looks at the command word. Have you said which is the most important or how successful for an evaluate one is? It's also a good idea to leave lines between the different paragraphs. This makes it very clear to see where the different paragraphs are, but also allows you to go back and add extra information should you think about it later on. So when we look at here, it gives an easy structure. You might want to introduce what TNCs and foreign direct investment is, and then you can have one paragraph on social impacts, both positive and negative, and one on the economic impacts as well. And then give an overall conclusion to state the most important ones. So here you can see with the color coding, the different possible ways of putting the information. So you've got more jobs with higher wages, which improve quality of life, so starting to assess it a little bit. But, yeah, so using the connectives which show however, or this is assessing how important it is. Although it does some good stuff, it does some bad stuff as well. Here we can see some of the economic impacts as well. Now you'll notice I've not really put any specific information in there, but having this with a good conclusion would probably still get you sort of 5 marks, but you do need that extra bit of information to take you higher than that. Looking at the question for a final time then before you attempt it. So assess the social and economic impacts of private investment by TNCs in a name developing emerging countries. Know what these key terms are, maybe give a brief introduction of these. Make sure you know the difference between social impact on people and impacts on jobs and on businesses, and give positive and negative impacts. It's 8 marks. You should have about 8 minutes or so, with a minute or two just to plan out your answer. Okay, so have a go at that before we go through the mark scheme now. Look at the mark scheme. Remember that you're not expected to include all of that information there. You want to give a balanced and detailed account, but just a couple of points on each would be enough to show that you've got an understanding and you've linked it to the question. AO2, assessment objective 2, is the understanding. This is what you know on the subject. So we can see here what some of the social and economic positive and negative impacts are and the key themes that are going through them. As we have a look to the evaluation side of it, or sorry, the assessment side of it. So talking about these positive impacts, they could be short or long term, but some of the impacts could also, some of the positive impacts can also lead into negative impacts as well. This shows you the way the mark scheme is, why it's so difficult to plan a set structure that would work for every single question. What's more important is that you look at the key terms in the question, you address them all from the command word by saying either how important or how successful it is in different terms, short term, longer term, more people, less people, certain different areas, and that you are looking at the key terms within the question and evaluating or assessing it. And it's really important that you do analyze the question before you start. Look at the command word, even right above the command word. If it's evaluate, how successful. If it's assess, how important. Underline the key words from the specification so you know what they mean and you can apply those into your answer. So I hope this has been useful. Thanks for watching. Please check out the other videos in the series and hopefully see you on here again soon. Many thanks. Bye.